Hey guys, I know you wanted me to do another video with close-ups of the NESPi retro flag hack to make it a soft shutdown by James White. I give that man all the credits. I will post a link to everything below that I have purchased or have. So, so you guys can figure out if you need it or don't need it, or what you need to get to do this mod. So basically, to break it down for you, out of the box, the NESPi case works flawlessly. You have a power and you have a reset. So when you turn the power off, it just turns the power off completely. So the best comparison I can think of for the case is to be compared to a computer. So when you shut down the power on the case, basically that's the same thing as pulling the plug out of the back of your computer. It's not something you ever want to do. Really, the correct way is to go into Emulation Station, shut it down, or whatever you're using. If you're using a Android operating system, you would go and shut it down just like you would your computer, whatnot. So you would shut it down like that, and then you would press the power button. With this modification, what it does is when you press the power button, it does all that for you. So it kind of relieves the stress of worrying about corrupting your SD card. And if you're like me and you're going to give some of these to your family members or friends or whoever, these are not foolproof, basically. And that's what kind of I was iffy about buying it. But ever since James White did his modification on it, now it's usable. So for about, I want to say roughly $10 extra putting into the case and a little bit of time, there is a possible way to make this user-friendly for everybody. So, so we're going to go through that. I'm going to try and get the scripts up and running as well, but for this video, all intents and purposes, is going to be to show you guys how to solder, what wires and what to cut, and how to do everything for the NESPi case. So we're going to go through a little bit of what you're going to need right now. So obviously you're going to need the NESPi case. This is a brand new one. It's not even opened yet. I still have about 6 or 7 of them that I need to modify. And I will be selling these. So if anybody wants one of these pre-modified, I will have them. And I will be doing an exchange program for people who are kind of iffy about soldering. But that's what this video is about, is to make you a little bit more educated on how to solder and whatnot. So I have a pair of cutters right here. These go from 10 gauge to 20 gauge. So on the left there, that's what the AWG stands for. That's basically the gauge of the wire. So you're going to need at least ones that go down to 20. If they start at 20, that's fine, and go up actually. So if you don't know much about wire, the higher the wire goes up, the smaller it gets. The lower the wire size, the bigger it gets. So obviously you can see here, it starts at 20, very, very small hole right there. Then it goes down to 10, pretty big hole. So that's probably the best thing to have. You can, but these are pretty good. Another thing you're going to need is an X-Acto knife or a cutting knife, some sort of knife. I know some soldering irons. Some soldering irons come with a knife attachment on it. You can try and use that. I'll be honest, I've never ever used that attachment. I couldn't even tell you how it exactly works. I would guess it just heats up and slices through things. But you probably don't want to do that with a PCB board, because that's what we're going to be cutting through. And if you heat up the PCB board, you can potentially destroy what you're doing. So I suggest against that. Another thing you guys might be thinking is a Dremel. Basically the same thing. You're going to be worrying about cutting through the board, and you don't really want that. Like if you're a master at Dremel, by all means go ahead and try it. But I highly suggest against it. Yes, this does require a little elbow work to do, but it's definitely a lot safer. Another thing is a Phillips head screwdriver, pretty small one. I think this is a PH1 or PHO or 0, whatever you want to call it. This one's magnetic and it's a sequential one, so I can just keep spinning it. You can use the one that comes with the retro flag. It's a little orange looking thing. Let me see if I got it over here. You can use this little fancy thing, but you know, that just it hurts my fingers, and it's got this little nub at the end, and I can't use it very well, so I went out and I bought a sequential one. Another thing you're going to need is obviously solder, because that's how we're going to be soldering things. 15 gauge solder, and it seemed to be a little gloppy on the connection points, and there were times where I would like mold over. I don't know if that's even a word, but it would kind of meld over. There we go. It would meld over from one contact point to another, so it just wasn't working very well, and I was struggling with it. So hopefully this will do a little bit better. As you can see, it's a 22 gauge. It's a 2.2% flux, and it's a no clean. So it's a pretty nice thing. These are quite expensive. I think this was like $20 for this spool of, I don't even know how long it is. But it is a 60-40, like most solders are that I've seen. So, well, this is my first time using it, so we'll see how it is and go from there. All right, another thing you're going to need is a pair of very, very small snips. These I just happen to have lying around. I know they do have like a special type of snips for small electronics that work a lot better than these. So if you want to get those, I'll probably end up providing a link for those ones, because those are actually a lot better than these. These ones kind of require a little bit of use on them, and they've seen better days. Like most of my tools, that I use them quite a lot. So, and I don't really replace them. I try and keep them going. So, moving on. One thing I do suggest is a helping hand system. I bought this little El Cheapo one. It's about $15, I think it was. These alligator clips. It does come with a magnet attachment as well, which you're probably never going to use unless you want to hold the screws for the case. That's up to you. I'm just going to put them off to the side in the little tray that's underneath the retro flag case. It comes with a nifty little eyeglass, so as you can see, like that's pretty close up, So this helps immensely, having an eyeglass, for sure. At least that you want to have. Another thing you're going to want, it is optional, but I do highly suggest it, is a voltmeter or multimeter, whatever you want to call it. This is going to help you when you're cutting the PCB board with this. This lets you know that you've disconnected your points properly. So basically that allows you to not have anything flow through it electronically. You can use a wire-to-wire if you want to, and like an LED and attach that and see if that works. That's fine, but this one's pretty easy to use. This one's a real fancy one. I probably won't include this because this is like a, I don't know how much it is, but it's really nice. Down here on the bottom, you see it's got like a little ohm channel, and it also alerts me, so it'll let me know if anything's wrong. But I'll show you exactly how that's used and let you know if you're doing it correctly or not. That's basically what that does. Another thing, it's optional again, but I do highly suggest it since we're working with hot soldering irons, and is some acid paste flux, or you can get like the little driplet ones. This one's kind of like really pasty. Let me open this for you to let you see what it looks like. This one looks really nasty. I mean, that's how it comes. It's basically a big goop of brown acid. And what this does is it keeps the PCB board from frying, basically. So when you have heat on it, you know, you can basically destroy the surface, and I'll show you really quick exactly how that can happen. This was my first PCB board since I started soldering this, and I hadn't done soldering in 4 years, so you know, it's been a while. So let's see if we can get a good close-up of this, of exactly what happened. Now this is with a regular soldering iron that this happened. So as you can see, it's pretty fried. The board might still be okay because the contact points are still intact, and I don't see really any problem. See, like those little lines right there. If those were damaged, then the board would probably be toast. So we'll try and resolder this. I'll probably keep this one for myself. I'm not going to give this one out to anybody because, well, that's kind of pointless. Actually, you know what? I'm probably just going to throw it out. Just to be on the safe side, because if I solder everything and it doesn't work, I'm going to be pretty ticked off. So we'll just end up throwing that out right now. But I wanted to show you guys exactly what can happen if you nearby and you just put a hot soldering iron directly onto a PCB board. This is exactly what can happen. So, moving on, sorry, gotta zoom out here. Another thing I do suggest is a soldering station. I know some people have some fancy ones that turn down the heat on this. Unfortunately, I don't have one that fancy yet. I'll probably pick one up this Friday when I get paid. But I had to go out and buy a new soldering iron because mine has seen better days. It being 4 years old and being in a toolbox and getting wet and whatnot. So this one's just a basic Haku, I believe that's called. Haku model. This is the blue version, and it's a brand new one. You see it's 2017. So that one's heating up right there. This little El Cheapo station I bought maybe for $8, I think. Another optional thing, I just bought this yesterday, so I might tinker with that in the video, but we'll see. This is basically a PCB holder, and it's a soldering station, but it's like a fancier version of the helping hands. So as you can see, it's got like little grooves in it, and this is fully adjustable, this bar. So you move these back and forth across the bar, and it works pretty good. So I mean it's kind of nifty to have, but for something of this size, these little boards, it doesn't really work too well. Apologies for the camera. My camera is just not working with me today. Let me see if I can put on autofocus. Nope, not working. So, moving on to what you need parts-wise, electronics. Here's everything that you're going to need. So right here you have the Polelo, I'm guessing that's how you say it, mini MOSFET switch. As you guys saw, it's pretty small. This is my fingernail. So it's about the size of my fingernail. I do have pretty big thumbs, but I mean, that's a pretty small piece. Right next to it, we do have two of the 1N4148 diodes. These are very small diodes again. You'll notice there's a little black piece on the end of these. That is very important when we're soldering, because that basically directs the flow of electricity. Basically think of that like a stopper. You know, so nothing goes out that way, everything goes in this way. So that's basically what it does. Right above this, if you can kind of see it, this is a 2.2K resistor. Apologies. This is optional in the write-up, but I do highly suggest it because the the resistor that's on the board is kind of melded into the board, or molded. Sorry, my wording today is just not right. It's molded into the board, and it's very hard to get connections off of it. So that's why we're just going to end up cutting the connections on that, and we're just going to wire this thing in. It's just it makes it a lot easier for doing everything. You're going to need some GPIO wire. Sorry, I accidentally turned off the camera on you. Sorry. So I went out and I bought these GPIO wires, or I'm sorry, a kit with these GPIO wires. So these are, I believe they're 26 gauge wires, but you can still use regular GPIO wires. So here's the kit that I bought. Basically, these are these little black pin selections. I do have a crimper that'll crimp these. I didn't see any at the store that you can use to crimp them, but I used to do a lot of electrical connections for cars and make things look like as if it came from the factory for a lot of my friends. So you can also use just regular GPIO pins as long as they're not the male ones. I believe these are female. Could be wrong. Yeah, female. So you can use those too. Those will work just fine. Some optional things. Sorry about the cord here. Got to keep you guys running so I can do this. I bought this the other day. I probably will never ever use it, but you know, it's kind of nifty to have. This is a desoldering tool. So if you have too much solder, you know, you just kind of suck it out. This thing I've heard is a real pain to work with. So that's probably why I will never use it. But hey, I got it for like $2, so I couldn't go wrong with it. I figured I might as well try it. Another thing is some heat shrink tubing. This is, I believe, 1/16 size. Again, I have a kit of heat shrink tubing over here, and it comes in various sizes. But for this case, you know, we're going to be using the 1/16 size. That seems to do pretty well. That'll cover any connections that you feel will possibly ground out. You can also use, you know, hot glue if you're worried about connection splicing into something. So that's another thing that you can do. So we're gonna set you guys off to the side here, and I'm gonna do a little bit of unboxing and working. So just sit back and relax. Let's zoom you out of here all the way and get you guys all set up. All right. Okay. So first things first, we're gonna move all my tools out of the way here. So we got a little bit of playing room. All of our electronics in one area. Straighten you up a little bit. Okay, so first things first, as you can see, this box has seen better days. Kind of got a little bit damaged while shipping. Hopefully the case is all right. I think it is. They're pretty sturdy cases. So let's see here. Yeah, we're good. So I just wanted to open this one up. This one, again, I will not be sending this one out just in case there's any problems. I'll make this one my personal one. So here's the case. This is the miniature NESPi. So here we are in all its glory. This case is probably the best Raspberry Pi case that money can buy. I'm not even joking. And if you have the time to do this modification, it can't be beat. You cannot beat it. I've looked at several cases, and this is probably the best. Both aesthetic and user friendly, and just people want this case. It just looks really good. Sorry, it's a little dusty here. So once you get it right out of the case, we're going to take the box and put it off to the side. The case is not screwed together, so you can just pop it off. Inside you have a little baggie. It's got 6 regular screws and looks like 2 black screws and 4 silver screws. So the silver screws go for the bottom of the case. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, and then inside, when you put the Raspberry Pi in here, I believe it's this screw hole and probably this screw hole, or vice versa. I forget which one it is, but anyway, so that's basically what it is. We're going to set that Raspberry Pi and then your PCB board. So basically we're gonna take everything out of this case right now. So let's go ahead and do that. We have 2 screws. Actually, I'm sorry. Let's pause that for a second. We're gonna clip the connection right where it bends here at this, the power PCB to the USB PCB, or the power reset PCB. We're going to clip that connection right here. So let's go ahead and take our little trusty cutters, and we're going to cut these right now. All right, so that's clipped. We're all good to go. All right, so we're going to remove the 2 black screws right here. So you got 1 screw, 2 screw. So let's remove those 2. And I'm basically gonna put all these screws inside the top shell so I don't lose any of them. There's 1 screw. There's 2 screws. Okay. So now that PCB board, you can just take it out and it'll be perfectly fine. So that's basically your power PCB. We're not going to be doing anything with that right now, so we're just going to set it off to the side. Okay, so next on the step is we're going to be removing the upper and lower PCB boards. There's actually 3 here and 3. So I believe there is 7 screws. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's 6 and 7 underneath here. So let's go ahead and remove the top 5. And again, these are all the same screws, so it's not like you have to worry about them. As long as you don't open up that bag, you're perfectly fine with what you got. Let's remove this one. Your retro flag case is going to look pretty naked after this, because there's going to be nothing left. And you know, for all those guys that want to do you know, custom jobs, you know, you could always take this apart and rewire it. I know Daft Mike has some modifications on it, so you know, those are pretty good. All right, so we're going to take this board out and this board out, and now you see we're down to the last PCB board. We have a screw here and a screw hidden in the corner here. So we're going to take those 2 screws out. Now the only reason why I'm not showing this stuff up close is because this is pretty self-explanatory how to do this. If you need to see up close what these are, I'll be honest, vacation. So anyway, so we're just kind of jiggle this out. This one's kind of stuck in here because it's pressed up against another board. All right, so there we go. We have all of our PCBs. So here's our naked bottom piece to the NESPi case. We're just going to set that off to the side right on top of the top board. Now the one PCB board that you're going to be modifying is this one with the power and reset. So right here there's a little tiny cable right there. Let me see if I can zoom this in for you. Let's focus in on that. All right, so this is the USB and Ethernet. So like I said, we're just going to be needing the power and reset. So we're going to just kind of wiggle this out a little bit. Don't pull too hard because you will pull these straight out of here. And getting that back in is not an easy task. So we're just going to lightly pull and wiggle and see if we could get this out. You know, it does require a little bit of force, as you can see. So now we're disconnected. So this, the USB PCBs, we don't need those. We're just going to put them off to the side. So this is really This is our bread and butter right here. I know some of you guys are going to have boards that look a little different. These ones, I have various versions of these. I have one that has blue rocker. The LED is also red on the other one. These are the new versions, so they did change some things up. As far as I can tell, the spring-loaded action is still the same. So there's no real difference in these. They might have just went with a little cheaper version. I'm not sure. And then the LED is actually, even though it's clear, it's a red LED. So my guess is they changed the design of that because of, you know, it possibly bleeding through the case and showing that it might be on, you know. So we'll see about that. But I know for sure that this comes out red. So no worries on that. So let's back you out of here for a little bit. Zoom. All right. So now I'm going to go in. I do suggest having the Jesse White mod page up on hand. I have my little small tablet right here that has it all ready to go. So we're going to be doing this from scratch. I know I've done it a couple times, but you know, every single time I want to make sure that I'm doing it right because I do tend to skip steps. So excuse me here while I take a drink before we start. Okay. So this is our first modification of the Jesse White mod. So as you can see from the reflection, there's kind of like an S in the middle here. And then there's also two lines that go down to each one of these little connectors. And then there's also a resistor that goes to the LED. So all these we're going to cut. We're going to cut all the lines to this. So this little resistor that's embedded in the board, actually. It's molded into the board. They did actually a pretty cool job with that. But we're not going to be using that because we're going to be using a 2.2K resistor. We're going to cut these two lines to take the power away from the power button. And then we're going to take the power actually from the power itself. And we're going to cut these two lines. So let me try and wiggle this around so we can get you zoomed in and get this all set up here. Hopefully this keeps focus and is okay. Let's see if I can adjust my little camera mount here. Okay, so let me get my knife and show you exactly what we're going to be cutting here. Oh God, I lost you. I knew that was going to happen. It was too good. Apologies. Let's try and do this again. All right. Set this up to where it's not going to fall because I'm on a really wiggly table. So let me see if I can find something really quick to keep you guys here. I had there it is. Be right back. Sorry about the sound. That's my my little clamping thing that I got here. Just making sure that it's clamped down so you guys can get a good view of this. Sorry about this. Apologies. All right. So now that we got that all set up and ready to go, we're gonna cut these lines. So basically what we're gonna do, you see this little resistor right here? We're gonna cut this line right here. We're gonna, if you put enough pressure into it, you're gonna be able to dig in and you'll feel it. You'll actually feel the line, because just like the resistors that I showed, basically there's a line going from here to the one end of the resistor to the other power switch for the power. So we're going to be cutting into that line. Let me see if I can get, my thing keeps saying I have crappy connection. Thanks, AT&T. There's two lines here. I don't know if you guys can see them. Let me get a little spotlight here. All right, that's much better. So as you can see, there's a line right here. We're going to cut that, and it doesn't matter where you cut it as long as you cut it. I do suggest doing like a ditch style for cutting. Same with this. We're going to be cutting this line, and then we're going to be cutting this line and this line. So what that does is it takes the power away from the entire board. So we'll still have grounding power, but we won't actually have the physical power. So as you can see, it's a little protruded. Once you start cutting into that, you're going to see some copper, I don't know what you want to call it. I guess kind of wiring, but we'll see. So this does take probably the longest to do for work-wise. So just be prepared to have a little bit of hand crampage when you're done with this. So we're gonna start with this. Let me see if I can zoom in a little more for you guys, because I know you guys want it up close, so I'm gonna try and get you the best possible quality. All right. So we're going to dig into that. As you can see, you might be able to see the little copper wire that I'm digging into, or tin wire, whatever it is. And yeah, you're going to be digging in pretty deep into this, so don't be too light with it. You're going to want to put some pressure into it and get it all out of here. So, and once we're done with this, I'll show you, this is the part where we're going to need the multimeter or voltmeter, whatever you're going to be using, as long as it's got an ohm reading, because you're going to be using it as a pass-through. All right. So as you can kind of see, let's see if we can zoom in there. It's not the best quality for the video, but you can kind of see I dug a good portion into the board. It's about as good as it's getting, I believe. But don't be disheartened if you don't get it the first time. I didn't get it the first time. This is my third time doing this, so you know, don't put yourself down if you don't get it. But like I said, the voltmeter or multimeter is going to help you out in this situation, because it's going to let you know how good of a cut you did the first time. If you did it right the first time, it'll let you know. So I mean, there's an upside and a downside to everything. So don't be too hard about it. All right, I think that's good enough for that one. So now we're going to work on these two lines. So we're going to start on the top one here. Let me see if it's kind of hard to do this because I'm a left-handed and you guys are right in front of me. Trying to think if I could switch the camera angle on you. Screw it. We'll just do this the hard way. So with these, what I try and do is I'll cut a line in the front here, and then I'll try and make a ditch further back. So basically, when you make a ditch, you're you're going to know if your connection is correctly disconnected. So again, just like the resistor, we're going to be cutting into the board pretty deep. Now these ones are set in here pretty deep, so these ones are kind of harder to determine on whether or not you're cutting them. And don't worry, if you make a big old mess with them, it's not the end of the world. We're not going to be using these, so don't be worried about it. Again, if you're worried about anything touching these open lines that are not being used, even if you're worried about it, you can dab a little glue on it or put some tape on it, whatever you want. You don't have to. They're going to be all right, because we're going to be taking power from the back of these switches. And I'll show you that when we're done. So as you can see, I'm making a pretty good gash on these. If you got something better than an X-Acto knife, please let me know, because this is what I was told to use, and I use it, and it works pretty damn good. But yeah, it does require a little bit of labor into it. So let's take a quick look. So you see, there's the gold plating showing through, or copper wiring, not gold. So you see it showing through. So that basically, I think that connection is pretty good. I think we severed that, because as you can see, you see the top one there? Let me see, try and position this correctly. So you see how there's copper on this side, and there's copper on this side, but there's nothing in this like little ditch. That pretty much means that we got it. So I think we're good on these two. So we're gonna move along to the next side and disconnect those, and then we'll test them all and go from there. Again, we're just we're nicking these right down the line. Now again, if you're worried about anything, you can nick this line here, this line on the opposite side, or do a switch swap. It doesn't matter. Either way, they will work. So we're just going to do the top line really quick. Apologies for the shaky camera. This is not the greatest table. And this one's a little bit harder to get into because of this this little hole right here keeps stopping me. But I don't know if you guys can see that or not. See how all the copper wiring on there is protruding through? It's all copper right there. And it looks like I cut it through already, but we're going to keep working at that a little bit. I'm kind of a little bit of perfectionist when it comes to that. And yes, I do suggest being very careful with this knife, because you will cut yourself very, very easily. It is exactly like an X-Acto knife. It's kind of a play on words there. Kind of funny. I'm going to see if I can get a better shot here. See if we can tip this all the way down. And that's a pretty good shot. Let's move it over here. Oh god, my autofocus just is a disaster.
So we're going to be doing this manually. This is actually kind of nice doing this close up because I don't need my magnifying glass. So I actually appreciate it, guys, for you guys wanting this, and girls. Getting there. Apologies if my heavy breathing is in the camera, but I'm literally hovering over it to make sure that everything's okay. So as I was saying, you see how like I'm just kind of making a ditch, and you can make it bigger if you want, doesn't matter as long as you make one, but I usually score once pretty deep before it, and then I'll make a ditch after it to make sure it's scoring properly. I think that one is pretty good. Oh yeah. Yeah, you see how there's like that ditch in between where the copper is? So we're gonna do the other one, and then we're gonna go ahead and test this. And I'll back out and test this, show you exactly what we're doing testing wise. I should stop and post this up for you guys to see. It is kind of late though. Well, late for some. I don't really sleep too much. Sorry, I know that might have been loud. Oh man, my hand is killing me. And I gotta do like 8 more of these things and send them out to people. It's gonna be so much fun. And I gotta get them done by Friday. I promised everybody that's when they'd be done. I don't know if that's gonna happen because I don't have enough time on my hands this week. It's a bad week. I think that's pretty good. Let's check the camera here. Oh yeah. See that nice mark right down the center there? That is perfect. Same with that one. Perfect. And we kind of scraped most of that off. That one I'm not too sure about this second one, but we'll check it. This one should be good too. All right. So let's back you out here for a second here. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a multimeter. We're going to turn it to the ohms. Now if you have a multimeter and it doesn't have this option, it's not the end of the world. Well, it'll have the ohms option, but it might not have the sound option. Mine's a little fancier. I do have one that does not have the sound, but just to let you know, when there's a pass-through, if you can hear it, that's the sound it's going to make. So it's going to give you a little beeping sound. So let's back out a little bit here. Let me see if I can get this all in one shot here. Okay, so you see when you go to the ohms, you're going to have a 1 and a period, or your multimeter might just say 1. So what that basically does is this is your pass-through. So if you took a wire and it was open on both ends, and you put this end on the one end and you put this end on the other end, you're going to get that sound.
you're going to get this. And it's going to give you a reading of how fast it goes through. So that's basically what it does. It tells you if the connection is proper or not. This helps with, you know, if there's broken wires anywhere and you don't know what's going on with something, this helps a lot. So, with this, you're going to have to check both of these little white power bricks. So we're going to put the tab right in the like little slit here. Let me get a little close up here of this. Let's see if we can zoom in. Okay, so you see there's like these little slots. You're going to want to put one end on the power and then the other end on each one of these. And the same for this. So this line goes to the bottom lines and the resistor. This power button, or you can use the top power, it doesn't matter as long as it's one of the red wires, is going to go to this line, the top line, and that's it. So the bottom line is going to be your resistor, your bottom line, and then to here. Okay, so let's back you back off. That's kind of funny. All right, so we're going to do the top ones first. So I'll show you exactly what's going on with this. Let's see if we can get a good zoom in here. Okay, so now we're going to test the top line. So as you can tell, I'm not getting any reading from this. Not getting anything at all. Now sometimes you might have to jab it in there. Oh, there we go. I found the pocket. So there, I'm touching the right side of the wall of the cavity, so I'm getting a power reading. So I'll be honest, I'm not exactly sure what these readings are, but I'm not that technically advanced. Maybe James White can chime in and tell us exactly what it is, or someone with some electronic knowledge. I'm sure I can look up and find exactly what it is, but basically it's just telling you that there's a connection being made there. So now I'm going to the left of the wall and the middle of the wall. You don't hear that connection. There's no reading. It's just one. Okay, so that one's good. So now we're going to move on to the second one. And again, you shouldn't get any reading off of anything on here, because what this does is it's a pass-through. So if you don't get any reading off of the back of this, you shouldn't get any readings off of the middles at all. Now I know you're probably saying, well, why do we have to cut the middle ones? If you disconnect this, it disconnects this entire board. Well, you're doing that just to be on the safe side. That's basically, if you don't have a multimeter, that basically helps you know that you're not connected here. So that's all that does. So we're going to go to the bottom one and we're going to check that. So we're going to put our lead, our test lead, into the positive. So here's the little part. This is the right side of that wall that I dug out. So we're getting a reading of it. Okay. So there's power. We're going to the left side. There's no reading on that. So you can hear it. There's no reading. Nothing on this. Okay, we're good. Now to the resistor. Nothing. So we're all good on those. So let me zoom this in a little bit and show you exactly what I'm touching. So you guys all know what it sounds like when I touch the power or the connection. Okay, so as you can see, here's the right side of that wall. Connection. Left side of this wall. No connection. So that ditch that we dug out, that's good. That's good. And like I said, you know, you can put some glue or tape or something over it if you're worried about it possibly bleeding through, which I don't think will ever happen. But, you know, if you're worrisome about it, you can do that. So again, here's the right side of the wall. Here's the left side of the wall. Nothing. And the same for these. Nothing. So, and you're scraping that out because you want to test it.
too. So that basically ensures that you've got a good connection. So right now we're doing good. We've got this going right so far. So hopefully it keeps going this way. So we're gonna turn our little multimeter off here, save the juice on it, and we're gonna put it off to the side because we don't need that really anymore. Okay, so that basically goes from step 1 to step 3 on James White's mod. So we have our little PCB board, and that everything's cut, and we're good to go. So now the fun things. We're gonna start soldering. Now, if you don't know anything about soldering, I suggest looking up on YouTube and just get a little basic video. But as long as you have some soldering core, a small gauge, some flux paste, this will help out any noob. I guarantee it. You can buy any type of flux. As long as it says it's flux, it's fine. So that'll help you out in any situation that you have. So basically, we're going to have to be soldering wires on all these pins, and then we're going to be soldering to these pins. So we're going to try and get this all hooked up for you and get it to where everything is soldered correctly. So this part I am going to kind of redo some steps. So usually you would go step 4, step 5, step 6, and then step 7 to do all this soldering. But we're going to start at the left side here because I believe that is the hardest. I'm a lefty, so it's going to be a lot easier doing this from a different standpoint. So as long as you're soldering this in a certain way, you're fine. As long as you got good contacts on all these points, you're going to be okay. Again, you can use the multimeter to test your connection if you're worried about anything not going right. So, don't just shut off the multimeter and just throw it away for the rest of the day. This can also help you out with troubleshooting. So, again, when you're connecting this line to this line and you're not sure if it's connected correctly or it's soldered correctly, just test it. Test one side of the lead to the other lead, and if there's a pass-through, it's going to give you a signal, and it'll let you know that it's working properly. So that multimeter really helps out a lot. So I do highly suggest getting one of those. You can buy an El Cheapo one for all I care, as long as it has an ohm reading. And if some of these multimeters, let's go back to this really quick. Some of the multimeters, they have like that sign, the ohm sign, instead of the pass through or stop pass through. Like I said, this specific model has an audio receiver on it, so it'll tell you about a pass through, is if the pass through is working, audio and both visually. So it's kind of like a dual one. This one is a Craftsman 82-141. This is pretty old. I don't even know if they make this model anymore. They might make better ones or smaller ones. Who knows? But yeah, you can use this for anything. You can check this for the batteries, fuses, everything. It's really a nice gadget to have. I highly suggest this to anybody who's doing anything electronics. So back to what we're here for. Soldering, my favorite part. Can you tell that I'm so happy to be soldering? I'll be honest, I was using a little tiny soldering iron. It's like a micro size soldering iron. I don't know where did I put that? So I was using this little teeny thing. You can buy these for about 15 bucks. This is an older one from Radio Shack. As you can see, the tip and everything has seen better days. I can't even get the tip out. It's in there. And I as you can see, I've tried getting it out as best as I can, and it's just I'm just ruining it. So I'm just I'm done with it. So a regular soldering iron works perfectly fine. Need a pair of steady hands and patience, really. So let's get to soldering here. Let me reposition this camera right quick so you guys get a little better view. All right. So I'm going to try and set this up so you guys have a view of what I am doing on this board. So let's see if we can get this. We're going to put our knife off to the side, our screwdriver off to the side, cutters, we'll keep that around just in case. Hopefully that stays. Of course, it probably won't, because, you know, that would be too optimal. All right, let's move this a little closer, shall we? All right, now I might actually just try this little board gadget thing that I bought, because hey, I bought it, I might as well use it. Let's see if we can. Let's see here. That's good enough. Maybe we'll just do this. That's what it's there for, so we might as well use it. And don't get me wrong, helping hands work. They work pretty well. But you know what? I bought a set of El Cheapo ones, and they work so-so. Alright, so let's see if we can try and do all this while having the camera on, and this is going to be so much fun. Can you guys feel my excitement? Great. Alright, so we're going to be taking a piece of the GPIO wire, and we're going to be cutting it down to the length that we need. So let's see here. Alrighty, so what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to do the bottom line. So basically we're going to be soldering a line from these two posts to these two posts to this, is that positive or negative? Another thing I didn't even think to do is to shit. I didn't even think about that until now. So we're just waiting on my soldering iron to heat up here. I'm gonna use the smaller one. Hopefully it still works. Really, really hope it does. Apologies for this being so long, but I want to be pretty thorough with it when you guys watch this, so you know exactly everything that's going on. There's nothing missed. So getting hotter. Not quite there, but close. Oh, we got one person watching now. Apologies if the video is kind of crappy or choppy or anything. My internet keeps saying that it's got a bad connection. Right now I'm just kind of waiting on my thing to heat up here. Soldering iron. Sorry, couldn't think of the name for some reason. Anyway. Alrighty. So let's try this again. Why the hell my thing is just globbing up here. Yeah, this is not working either. Things are just not working today, huh? Oh boy. I mean, it's connected, so I'm not really worried about it, but the connection just doesn't look that good to me. That's actually all right. I think it'll pass for what we need. That'll do good. That'll do, pig. All right. So another thing is you gotta cut the end of this line. Now, when you're cutting it, you gotta be careful because you can pull this jacket right off. But it's not the end of the world if you have heat shrink tubing. So if you pull the jacket off of this part, which will probably end up happening, but we'll try and get around that. You know, you can always just use heat shrink tubing to fix that little dilemma that you're having. So we're going to go ahead and snip this right at about there-ish. So that way it's just a little bit further than the actual connectors. And then we're just going to kind of squeeze the casing a little bit. You don't want to squeeze too hard because you will pull the casing off of it. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to grab a small pair of tongs. We're going to do this. We're going to hold the casing on there. That's not working. I really wish I had a micro pair of strippers. Yep, see? Came right off, as I knew it would. Anyway, not the end of the world. We can always just cut some heat shrink tubing, put it on there, and we'll heat it up with the soldering iron. And who knows, when we solder this end of the wire, we might just get an automatic shrink on it. So we'll see. Ah. There we go. Oh, damn it, we gotta cut it down just a hair. All right. So when we're all done, it'll look like that. So we're going to take the helping hand again. We're going to squeeze it because you can get in between here, in between the two switches, and use a alligator clip or a helping hand or whatever you want to call it. Let's try and, apologies. Like I said, my apologies for this taking so long. I'm not a master at what I do. I'm just your regular, everyday, normal guy. Alrighty, let's try this again. I think what I have to do is I have to have the soldering iron on the top and the solder on the bottom, because it didn't seem to work doing it downwards, which is fine. I probably should be doing this upwards, but whatever. For some reason, my tip is glopping everything on, and I have no idea why. I think this tip is just seeing better days. I think it's time to invest in a new miniature soldering iron. Let's go back to the big boy. Alrighty. Well, I think that's a lot better on this side than it is on that side. I'll probably add some more solder on that side just to make it a little better. All right, now we're just waiting for the other soldering iron to power up here. Like I said, again, I'm sorry for the delays. I'm still very new at doing this. It's been quite a while, and I wasn't that great to begin with back in the day when it came to soldering. This might not work with this 26 gauge. I really hope it does. I think that's about as good as that one's getting. Alrighty. Let's try this again. Let's see if maybe turning this like that will help. Oh yeah, much better. Okay, so we have that all soldered up. So now we're going to connect this line to the negative line. So for that, we're going to have to cut another small piece of wire. You can use a different type of stripper if you want. I'm using a hand style stripper. I know there's an automatic stripper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a longer line for this. And what I'm going to do is I'll have this go up over the edge of this negative block. Excuse me. Sorry. So what I'll do is I'll have this go up over the negative block. So this longer piece of wire, if you can even see that. So that'll be kind of going over like that. So it'll hang over, and then we can just clip the edge of it on this side. Alrighty. So for this one's going to be a little bit trickier. There we go. Alright, so let's get our soldering iron. Alrighty. So now we're just going to connect this wire. Oop. This edge, I'm sorry. Now be careful if you're going to be doing this by hand, because this stuff does get very hot. But like I said, if you got a soldering station, you probably aren't worrying about that. Yowza! Ah, I fucked it up. See, that's what happens when too much of a perfectionist. Just making this worse and worse. All right. Just gotta make sure we're not touching any of the other lines here. You don't want to be touching like these little lines. That would be bad. All right. So now we need to set this up. Turn that so you guys can see. All right, that's good. See, the thing is I'm making it look a little harder than it really is because I'm doing it on camera, and it's not a pretty sight when I'm doing it on camera. So again, if you want to check your connection, we're going to go back to the multimeter, and if it's correct, we'll put one lead here on this end. So we're good. Hear that little beep? That's a connection. So we're good. That's all good. Even though the soldering don't look as pretty as some people's soldering, like James White. I don't know how you do it, man. You must have some super steady hands or something. I don't know. You are godlike, I must say. So, like I said, we're just gonna snip all the lines there. So that looks kind of nice. Make sure nothing's protruding so it doesn't stab anybody or nothing like that, even though probably nobody's going to be messing with this after we're done. So basically, that's kind of what it looks like. I know it looks real sloppy, but it works, and it's going to work. It's going to continue to work. So it does real good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a get this in here. How am I going to do this now? All right. Okay, so it's semi-wedged in there. Apologies for the viewing angle, but I think this is about the only thing that I can have like this. I don't think this will work any other way. Let me me see if I could get a better shot of this. Yes, we're going to tip you upside down and go crazy. Zoom you out here. And that way I can zoom you back in. Take you off the power lead here for a quick second. Trying to rig this up so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. Let's see if maybe I can just move this over. I know it's crap quality, but hey, it works. Alright. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a jumper from this positive to this positive. Okay, so again, that's going to be a little hard to do because these wires are very, very small. And you can do it pretty much any size you want. It's not the end of the world. As long as it's a jumper, we're okay. Okay. Now what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to solder it onto the bottom part here, so that way there's no possible connection, because I always seem to get these two connected together and they don't look very good. So that's kind of connected. We're going to put a little more solder on it. Yep, knew that was going to happen. I seen it. Okay. Make sure that that's okay. Looks good. Okay. All right. All right, so now what we're going to be doing, if this stuff would work, it would be fantastic. We're going to be adding, we're going to be adding a jumper line to this two middle prongs right here. So let's do we'll do an orange color. I think for future reference, I'm going to go with a little different gauge of GPIO wire, because this size that I'm dealing with, this 26 gauge, is just way too small. All right, so we got that one soldered in. So we're gonna put some solder on here. Get this in. And I ruined it. As I knew I would. Come on now. Barely even touch that. Come on. Frustrating.